You ever start a movie late at night after a long day with no intention of finishing it, but it pulls you in? Then you have to talk about it with your friends and family because it was so good or so bad? You, my friend, are not alone.
Welcome to the Midnight Watch Podcast.
Welcome, true believers. Welcome back to the Midnight Watch Podcast, the podcast where we discuss the movies that we all love, secretly love, and love to hate. I'm your host, Jeremy, along with my brother, Josh, and today we have a really amazing episode for you guys.
That's right, Jeremy. And here at the Midnight Watch, spoilers are everywhere, and we like to try and discuss movies that are at least 10 years old or older. At the end of the show, we'll rate these movies in 3 categories. 1, did it hit its mark when it was released? 2, is it still relevant today? And 3, for personal enjoyment. All right, enough said. What in the Stan Lee are we reviewing today, bro?
Well, Josh, this wisecracking web slinger knows a thing or two about getting into sticky situations. And no, I'm not talking about Deadpool, though he's been known to tangle with his webhead a time or two. Comic book and Marvel film fans rejoice. Today, we are bringing you the 2002 classic, your friendly neighborhood Spiderman.
Excelsior! Man, I can't believe we're finally doing this one. I know we haven't really talked about this as much as The Matrix, but this is a special one for us, for sure.
This one, we did kind of tease it a little bit with Minority Report, talked about it briefly.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
But, we haven't got into, we have not hyped this one up too much, but we got a lot to talk about with this one, so let's jump right in real quick.
Yeah.
Directed by Sam Raimi, the budget was originally $70 million, and then it jumped up to $100 million. And then this was, I don't know if this was unprecedented at the time, but they did $30 million to promote this. They promoted the crap out of this thing. This is a big one. It took almost 20 years for them to finally make this movie. Even James Cameron had a go at it, and it was a totally different film than what it would have been. So $100 million, so 130 with promotion. And then it made $825 million in 2002. So that's a lot of money.
Right.
It's pretty awesome.
It totally blew the doors off of previous attempts at superhero movies. I mean, we had the the Superman franchise, which was
big in the
respectable. 80s. It did its thing.
Well, I mean, that was big in the 80s.
Sure. Early 80s. And then you had Batman.
Yeah.
And then there was, 4 Batman movies that were definitely a thing that put, comic book heroes probably up bigger than Superman, I would say.
Yeah.
And this, though, and then we had X-Men. Marvel made a stab at X-Men, which did really well.
That came out in 2001, the year before this.
Right. But it was still, it almost, I don't want to say it had an underground kind of vibe to it, but it just did not have the punch that finally bringing Spider-Man to the big screen did. This movie was unreal how big this was. Oh yeah, I would say as much as X-Men is big now and it's a household name, but when it first came out, unless you were a Marvel fan, you didn't really know who X-Men were, what I would assume. But Spider-Man is the most popular Marvel character of all time. Right.
And so, DC had Superman, and then they had Batman, which Batman in 1989, I would say this movie was similar in the hype with Batman in 1989. Like, that was a big deal when that movie came out because it was the serious Batman.
Right. Yeah. Not the goofy Adam West one.
Right. So this one, though, yeah, it was big. Let's see. I remember, when this movie was coming out, like, everybody was talking about it. People were so hyped. And it was coming out at an interesting time because the first teaser trailer dropped that had the helicopter that he took down between the Twin Towers. And then 9/11 happened, and so they had to edit part of the movie to edit out some of that.
Right.
But then they, so the hype of this movie.
Well, I heard they pulled that promo spot too.
They did. It's still it's up on, you can Google it on YouTube it on YouTube. I actually watched it because I never saw it actually before a couple days ago. I just heard about it. Mm-hmm. But that scene, though, I don't think that scene was ever supposed to be in the movie. I think that was just supposed to be a teaser trailer.
That's what I read, is that it was designed just to be specifically not related, or nothing from the movie, but just to grab people and pull them in, which I kind of wish they did that more. I know that Deadpool kind of did some of that, and I know other movies have too, but I wish that was more of a common practice, so that, because you know how it is these days, a lot of times the entire movie is in the preview.
Oh, especially, it's so bad with Sony, especially like the Amazing Spider-Man 2. It was literally a 2-minute breakdown of that whole movie. And
Right.
I hate it when they put, I mean, okay, so Sony did it with this movie too, but not as bad though. This movie, they do have the last scene from the movie in the trailer, but with the Amazing Spider-Man 2, like, you literally saw the whole plot. In this one, they kind of hide the plot.
Right.
The thing that was cool about this one, I remember it, I was watching the trailer again after I watched the movie, and I remember this trailer very vividly, because it was like, they didn't tell you hardly any story for the second theatrical trailer. It was just like this awesome song that came out in the early 2000s that was in like every preview, but it was like, this movie is going to be freaking dope. It's going to be tight, and you have to go see this movie.
It's funny, I actually don't remember the previews very well from this movie, but I totally remember the one from the second movie with Doc Ock, when Peter and Mary Jane are sitting in the cafe talking, and then all of a sudden he starts, moving her out of the way as that car is being flipped through the window over them. That whole segment that to me was just like, what the? Yeah.
Right? Oh, dude, it was so cool. And you know what's funny? We always reference The Matrix. The first theatrical trailer has the theme song from The Matrix in the trailer. And
really?
It's like, yeah, he's like, who am I? Are you sure you want to know? And it's playing the whoa, whoa, like Matrix music. And I was like, oh, there it is. There's the connection right there. Mm-hmm. But all right, let's see who we got starring in this.
Everything is connected to the Matrix.
Everything is connected. All right,
give us a quick rundown here. Who's in it?
We got right here. Let's see. We got starring Tobey Maguire, Totes Maguire, and we got Kirsten Dunst. Totes. We got James Franco. We have Willem Dafoe. Joe. We got Joe Manganiello. I think I said his name wrong.
I think.
Is that how you say Manganiello? Did not remember him in this movie, and I was like, oh snap! This is his first.
He looks like a baby practically.
Oh yeah,
because he's such like a grizzled dude in like the stuff you see him in these days.
Right.
And then, but in this thing, I mean, he was, clean shaven,
really clean cut. This was his first big screen appearance, actually. And then we got Elizabeth Banks. We have the almighty J.K. Simmons.
Yes.
We have Rosemary Harris and Cliff Robertson. We've got Randy Savage. We've got Octavia Spencer is in one scene in this movie. We have Bruce Campbell. We have Ted Raimi. We even have Jim Norton literally in one scene, which is hilarious, just seeing him in that one scene. I didn't see her, but apparently Lucy Lawless is in this movie. Did you see her in this movie?
Yeah, she's the punk rock girl. She's the punk rock girl when he first gets to New York and everybody's talking about who Spider-Man is. And she's like, ooh, a guy with 8 arms sounds kind of sexy or something like that.
Dude, I did not even recognize her. Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty intense. So yeah, we got tons of people in this movie. The list goes on and on. Ryan Phillippe, I think I said his last name right. He's in this movie. I don't remember him in this movie, but
I don't either actually. What was he? Was he one of the?
It doesn't.
Was he one of the classmates or something?
He probably was, because a lot of those classmates are like guys that you see in a ton of those movies right around that same time. All right, let's do this. I want to say right off the bat, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think hands down the best actor out of this movie is Willem Dafoe.
Bro, I am complete agreement with you. Well, with the exception of Bruce Campbell. Let's be real here. Real talk. Well,
Bruce Campbell did great as his one-dimensional character, and I love Bruce Campbell. Willem Dafoe, though, plays so many different versions of himself in this movie. He plays himself as a father figure, but that kind of a douchebag father figure to Harry, but he likes Peter because Peter's a scientist and he appreciates him. And he's kind of disappointed in Harry, though we don't say why. But he plays that character, and then he gets the serum, which I don't think it technically makes him crazy. I think, if you're willing to murder somebody and you don't care about it, I guess that makes you crazy technically. But he's calculated, he's cold, he's definitely psychotic. And
Right. Well, I feel like it takes away his inhibitions. I mean, to be a successful business owner. I totally believe there's a level of cutthroatness that you have to have, and I think the serum definitely, at least, just removed those inhibitions and made him the ultimate cutthroat businessman.
yeah. Technically, realistically, I don't think he cut anybody's throat actually, but he blew them up and he disintegrated them and stuff. But he just is so good, though. If you watch him in every scene, like the scene when he talks to himself in the mirror, realizing that the Green Goblin's there, and then because I guess at first he blacks out when he first does his evil shenanigans, but and then like the scene where he gets introduced to Mary Jane and he's just like sizing her up and like smiling at her, like, "Hey, what's up, doll?"
Like licking his lips like a wolf,
super creepy way.
Yeah.
But then like he really is excited he's happy to see Peter, and then once he finds out that Peter's Spider-Man, he's like really beating himself up with that because he really likes Peter.
Right.
And he's just such a good actor. This was the first movie I saw him in, and I was like, we jumped right into it. So first thing, when I first saw this movie, you and me went to go see it a couple months before you got married. I was 15 and you were 21?
22.
22. This is the first PG-13 movie that I ever saw in theaters because I was homeschooled and very sheltered, and this movie was pretty mind-blowing, and so it was awesome. I think both of us were big fans of Spider-Man growing up. Loved the Spider-Man 90s cartoon show, and it was just
I got
awesome.
to watch when I was real little. I got to watch the original 60s Spider-Man cartoon. It would come on.
Oh, really?
There was a brief period where Mom would let me watch it.
That's cool. I didn't see that until like literally years later. I didn't even.
Oh, like after the fact, huh?
Yeah, like the whole Spider-Man theme song. I never heard it until like years later, and did a deep dive on that. I think you bought me that Ultimate Spider-Man guide book for Christmas one year.
Oh, that sounds familiar.
I had I still have that. It still has like a ton of Spider-Man facts up to like 2001. Really fascinating stuff. Anyways, so this is a big movie. This is like the last movie that we saw together as brothers before you got married. And that was really special time.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know that you and I had ever gone to the movies, just the two of us.
I don't think so.
Not that our family really went to the movies that often up to that point. I think we went and saw Toy Story 2.
Yeah, that was
Was that maybe the first one we all went to as a family?
Yeah, no, it was.
Yeah. And then I like Monsters Inc. I remember seeing that.
Yeah. Waited a year
but
until
it was probably Pixar movies.
It was
our first outing to see things as a family. But this one, what was a couple things? Like I vividly remember this just with our age difference, especially back then. I mean, I didn't hate you. I didn't consider you like an annoying little brother, but just 15 and 22, I mean, I'm about to get married and you're just barely getting into high school. And there's just our lives were just so different. Our life experiences were just so drastically different at that time. But this was something that I felt like we really got to come together on. And I just remember being so stoked to go with you to the movies to see this. One, because we hadn't seen many movies together. Two, it's freaking Spider-Man. We're super juiced about that. It looked amazing. It looked super awesome. The previews, all the hype, the style, I mean, the posters, everything.
Oh, yeah.
Looked incredible. And I just remember being so excited. I don't know. I really can't think of another movie that I was so excited to go see. There's been a few, but this was a milestone film for me.
I think the only one
to go see with you.
Yeah, I think the only one that was close to this was Spider-Man 2 when that came out, because that was a huge deal. I had the poster of Spider-Man 2 on my wall for years.
Right.
And
did we go see that one together too?
Yeah. I think Spider-Man 3, I went with some friends to see it in IMAX. And I think I actually have only seen that movie once all the way through. But Spider-Man 1, though, seen multiple times. Seen Spider-Man 2 multiple times. But anyways, this was a huge deal, though, in this movie, though. Like, big deal. And so many people were going to see this movie. It just was... a lot of people liked it. It got like 95%, something like that. It's really highly regarded.
It was a legit blockbuster, man. I think for sure was I don't know. I guess should have done some more research on Tim Burton's Batman as far as the how that was as a blockbuster. But I just feel like this movie legit raised the bar on the superhero movie genre, and I feel totally kicked off the modern era of superhero movies that we see today that have culminated in, you know, the masterpiece that is the MCU.
Oh yeah,
DC putting out some really, you know, some pretty good quality stuff.
Well, this movie, yeah, I feel like there's several different bars. There was Superman in '78 when that came out, because that was a huge deal. There was Batman in '89. There's Spider-Man in 2002, and then there was Iron Man and The Dark Knight in 2008, which morphed into what we have today as superhero movies. So if you compare the modern day superhero movies to this movie's cheesy. And just as you know, you go back, you watch every movie that are landmark films. They're all cheesy compared to today, but they broke the barriers that had never been thought of before. CG was still really new.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
Dude, we got a lot to talk about this movie. So this movie gets some flack now because it's cheesy, and people are like, oh, wow, like the new movies are so much better. Well, I would hope so. Like, I hope that every Spider-Man version gets better. Tom Holland kills it as Spider-Man. I love him as Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Tobey Maguire at the time really liked him as Spider-Man, thought he was good. Actually, I liked him as Peter Parker. I didn't think he quite nailed it as Spider-Man.
No, he is an excellent Peter Parker and a so-so Spider-Man. And I think he's a terrible Spider-Man, actually, when you look back at it.
Right.
Compared to what he's evolved into.
And then I feel like the Amazing Spider-Man was the opposite. Andrew Garfield was like too cool for Peter Parker. Then great job as Spider-Man. And Tom Holland nails it on both sides.
Yeah.
And I'm glad with what they're doing with the new movies, even though they're playing different than the original stuff. But hey, we've already got several versions of Spider-Man. Let's go, you know?
Yeah.
Let's do it. But so this movie, as I was watching it, I was like, dude, this is a dated movie. As in, like, Sam Raimi was very inspired by lots of old school films. Like the way I was
totally going to go into that. Keep going.
The way that he films this movie is like that. Sometimes they'll be like, "Oh yeah, this was great," and then they're just kind of smiling at each other, and the scene fades into the next scene. And I'm like, you don't see that in movies anymore. That's a classic movie editing process. I just thought that was so cool. This movie's very, very classic comic bookish as well. Like the language, like the way they talk, the over the top, like we'll meet again, Spider-Man. Like all of that is like you could see that in a comic book. He was Sam Raimi's a huge comic book fan. He has over 25,000 personal comics or comics in his personal collection, and that helped him to net the option to actually direct it. He wasn't the first pick, but he got the role. And anyways, I got a lot to say, so yeah, jump in.
Well, I was just gonna say to me, Raimi really has like a 60s Hollywood vibe.
Yes.
And you see that in this movie, which to me makes this movie a classic. Like you're watching it, yes, it's an old movie, yes, it's dated, but it's so well done in that classic Hollywood style that I feel like it kind of makes it eternal a little bit. And it's cheesy, but there's thoughtfulness to the cheesiness. It's almost like he was teasing, like you know that he was being a little bit cheesy while he's making it, and that's kind of the point, which I think is different from a movie that is taking itself way too serious. Then it becomes dated, and then it's just kind of a laughing stock,
right,
about how bad it is. But this one, I feel like it the way it was shot, it kind of was able to have some built-in longevity and grace because of that kind of old-fashioned style that it is.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think that if it took when it came out, it was considered like a pretty serious film. And that goes to show how filmmaking has evolved in the last 18 years since it's been out. It's kind of funny. It took about 18 years for it to get made. Now we're reviewing it 18 years later.
Hey.
But like if it came out now, people would not enjoy it as much. But at the time, it was like perfect. People loved it. It was awesome.
Well, it was a good transition from the goofiness of like the Batman movies, which, I mean, they were dark, I guess, for the time, but they were having fun. This movie has a very fun element to it. It's not necessarily funny. Like the humor in the movies that have come out in the last 5 to 10 years, it's real comedy. Like really, really solid jokes are written into these movies. The stuff from this one it's a fun movie. I don't know if that makes sense between. My kids actually realized that right away too. They're like, the new ones are way funnier. And yes, you laugh and it's cute. It's like cute funny, I guess, a lot of the jokes.
Right. There's the I don't know how to put that. I know what you mean. It's hard to express exactly what you're saying.
I want to do a shout out to Danny Elfman doing the soundtrack.
Oh yeah.
His scoring, to me, kind of like how Danny Elfman works really well with the whimsicalness of Tim Burton. I feel like his style lent itself very well to Sam Raimi's kind of classic Hollywood. The scoring for this movie was very classic Hollywood, I thought, with lots of brass, lots of da 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 da, kind of big dramatic, over the top, horn parts and whatnot. Different from like a John Williams. This one, it just worked really well with that.
Oh yeah. Well, it's for example, he also did the original theme song to Batman. Okay, well, not the original, the 80s theme song.
Right.
And
the 89 Tim Burton.
Right. And then, which is kind of funny, he also did the theme to the remake of Planet of the Apes, the Tim Burton remake, which was also in the Spider-Man theatrical trailer. And I was like, hey, I recognize that.
Right.
But yeah, no, I totally agree. Because it's just like the one sequence where the Green Goblin is at the fair and he's bombing places and Mary Jane's screaming, and then all of a sudden randomly you get this sequence of this girl go, hey, it's Spider-Man, and then he flies in and saves the day. And like now it's kind of like that. It's a little cheesy, but the way that he does it, I didn't think it was cringy cheesy. It's fun cheesy. It's like it's like classic. It does have a lot of feel of the 60s Spider-Man mixed in with the modern day. There's a lot. That's true. There's a lot of mixing of different types of Spider-Mans in this movie.
Right. For sure, there's a strong backbone, I feel, of the original 60s Spider-Man, but you can't deny there's that modern twist for early 2000s that is very much a part of the movie. Yeah,
absolutely. I will say the dialogue between Mary Jane and Peter for the love scenes, or I should say, I don't know what I'm saying. Josh, help me out.
The romantic, I don't know, man. The flirting with each other.
Yeah, all that. That's like very cheesy. And my wife's like, Peter Parker's kind of creepy. And I'm like, oh, just give me a little, just be quiet, you. But yeah, it's definitely, it's fun. It's not supposed to be taken seriously. But at the same time, though, this movie really got me emotionally in a couple parts where I just like the seriousness, where you can tell he's struggling with himself while I'm trying to do the right thing. This movie does not have a big story like I remember. It's not actually an epic story. It's pretty tight. The Green Goblin knows Peter Parker on a personal level, which is what makes it super personal.
Right. And the fact that Peter doesn't realize it till the end. I mean, that was cool too. That makes it more emotional for him when he finally, he's been fighting this person and all of a sudden he knows the face, and it's not just a face. This is somebody he respects, and not just somebody he respects. It's his best friend's dad. So it's like it's a double whammy. Yeah. It's a big one. There is so much low key good acting from Cliff Robertson and Rosemary Harris. Yeah.
Just like really
they're from
good.
another time. They're, again, going with the classic vibe. Those two actors are from another time period. I mean, they have a classical type of acting skill that lends itself really well, not just to their age in the movie, but it fits really well. But yeah, it's low key. It's amazing.
There's every once in a while, every I don't know, 5-10 years, movies change and evolve to a new version, and then you look back at the movies beforehand and you're like, oh, those movies were cheesy, which at the time they were awesome when they came out because that's what people expected. And it's cool just seeing Sam Raimi really mix it, because he created, the team created like new camera work, like an actual Spider-Man web slinging camera that they created to actually get these sweeping scenes to put Spider-Man in.
Right.
So they were doing all kinds of cool stuff.
That still, some of that stuff, some of those shots still hold up really well.
Oh,
and some of what makes the CG look bad is the quality of our TVs these days. The whole time that I was watching this movie, I was like, man, I wish I was watching this in standard definition. it would have looked so much better.
And well, also too, they were still figuring out ragdoll effects and like how fast people actually move or how slow they move.
Right.
So Spider-Man moves too fast for a human in different scenes that just doesn't make sense.
Right.
And they've really mastered that in the new Marvel movies, so it's a lot easier to trick your brain into like there's always a line of disbelief in movies.
Right.
And as long as you don't pass that line, you can do all kinds of crazy stuff. I know they call that jumping the shark, and they don't jump the shark in this movie, I don't think, but it does pull you out of theater or out of the movie slightly when you're like, well, he's moving too fast. So you're like, oh, that's fake. But there's a lot of this.
Sorry, finish your thought.
I was just gonna say, there's actually a lot of this movie though is practical effects. Like for example, the spider that bites Peter Parker. Most of that was a real spider that they had like a little shell that they had painted and put that on top of the Black Widow. And then they had actually, there's only a couple sequences with that spider that's CG. Most of that is a real spider. They had a spider wrangler on set. It's pretty legit.
Wow. That's old school Hollywood, man. I love that. Just the fact that I mean, it sucks these days. Not that CGI is a bad thing, but it's so cheap.
Oh, yeah.
Money wise, it's so cheap for them to, it used to be a big deal to use CGI. Now it's completely gone the other way where you can't afford to do practical
it's more expensive.
effects. Yeah. And so anytime you see that, I mean, it's kind of becoming a lost art just because budget constraints. But I love the fact, and I read that Sam Raimi specifically, even though he knew he was going to be using CGI and it was new technology and he was very okay with that. I love the fact that he was not willing to go 100% on the CGI.
Yeah.
Case in point, the other big movie that year was The Clone Wars. And
Attack of the Clones, yeah.
Attack of the Clones. That was, I mean, it is what it is. I'm not just trying to rag on that movie, but it's too much CGI, and it wasn't good CGI yet to where you could pull that off. And that movie it feels like it's 80% CGI.
Yeah, the first two especially. The third movie, they do it. I mean, obviously it's evolved in the 5 years from the first movie to the third movie, but I totally agree that they're harder movies to watch versus this movie doesn't have. It has a lot of CGI in it, but not even as close to as much CGI as like the new Marvel movies. But then again, like we said, this is
things are better now.
CGI was still pretty new. I mean, now they can de-age people and it totally looks real.
Right? Yeah, considering you can really put full actors and actresses in, and sometimes it's impossible to tell. Yeah. But another good example from that year, from 2002, Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers.
Yeah.
That movie is amazing, and Peter Jackson does a really great job of not overdoing special effects. In my opinion, it's not really until Return of the King Treebeard was in The Two Towers, right?
Yeah.
So that part did not age well. In fact, it didn't look good when it came out. Really, it started to do an ent and make it look good. But anyways, that's just another example of somebody embracing the traditional special effects, real practical versus just CGI. So anyways, bringing it all the way back around, I'm glad, even though that's the special effect, the CGI is a little bit dated, I'm still glad that Sam Raimi didn't want to completely throw all of his chips in on it.
It's dated, but it's not horribly dated where you're like, oh my God, this looks so bad. Which there are some other movies, don't get me wrong. Like, do not get me wrong. I don't hold cheesy movies against themselves. Like some of my favorite movies are horrible movies.
Right.
But
hey, did you watch that Japanese Spider-Man video I sent you?
I didn't get a chance to. I've seen a teaser for it, but Stan Lee was not a fan of that.
I could see where he wasn't, but oh my gosh. So I've known about the Japanese Spider-Man show / movie that came out in the 70s. Mm-hmm. And dude, it was so much fun. I finally watched it because the girls and I had watched this movie, and then we started going down a rabbit trail of I showed them the 90s Captain America movie.
Oh,
which was so terrible, and it was like
movie.
A train wreck. But they couldn't stop watching it. I kept telling them, we don't have to watch this anymore. It's so bad. We have to keep watching.
Okay, quick trivia, real quick. The guy who directed that was originally wrote a treatment for the Spider-Man movie, and they wanted him to do the Spider-Man movie.
No way.
But he, fortunately, I should say. Fortunately, funding fell through, and then it shuffled to the next player.
Wow. But yeah, that was bad. But that led me to, let me show them the Spider-Man stuff from the 70s, which is terrible. It's so bad. But surprisingly, the Japanese one, I thought, was better because that Spider-Man definitely had some martial arts.
Was it actually entertaining?
Yeah, it was in a Power Rangers sort of way.
That's what I thought from I saw it from the trailer, because I know the American 70s show is pretty boring.
Oh, it's so slow. And
yeah.
Spider-Man is just boring. Like when he's in costume, he doesn't do anything.
Right.
And the Japanese one, I mean, he's doing flips and he's doing kung fu, and then the bad guys are super entertaining. I guess if you appreciate Power Rangers and giant robots and
heck yeah,
know,
it's not
all
Spider-Man.
that goofy stuff, dude, so much fun. I don't know how I ended up on that, but cheesy for cheesy's sake.
Right.
That is so cheesy, and I loved it.
Yes, absolutely.
So, everybody check out Spiderman. Spiderman.
Is that how they? That's pretty
that's
awesome.
How they said it. Yeah.
So going back to the 2002 version of Spider-Man, real quick. This is the first movie that has the classic Marvel comic intro, like with the pages flipping and all that.
Oh,
This is the first one when it got a standing ovation during the premiere because people were so jacked about it. They were like freaking excited about this movie. This was the movie.
Right.
Okay, so it's funny too, a little history of Marvel. Marvel sold off most of the movie rights to lots of its characters because they were about to go out of business.
Right.
And then X-Men and Spider-Man saved the Marvel comics pretty much. Right. And then now they're a huge juggernaut owned by Disney, bought for $4 billion by Disney. And it's just crazy now, how that worked. You know what's funny though? There's a couple references to other other Marvel comics, but there's like blatant references to DC when he's all like up and away, Shazam. Right. And then like
you're not Superman.
Right. And it says that like I like in this world that the DC comics are comics, because that's the difference though. DC is not based in real world. They're based in their own world, technically. And well, for example, like Metropolis is pretty much New York, but Spider-Man's in New York. Like all of the Marvel characters are in real cities.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was kind of funny how they're just kind of like, the DC comics they're comics. They're not real superheroes.
Right. It's not real life.
It's not real life. So that was pretty awesome. This movie, it was also this was the first DVD that I ever bought as well. And it's
not bad.
Fun.
I think that's a cool first DVD purchase.
I didn't even have a DVD player. I just bought it on DVD, and I was so
Did
excited.
Mom and Dad have a DVD player?
No.
Wait, really?
No, we didn't have a DVD player until I bought a PS2. But
oh wow,
dude, our cousin though, Sterling, he had a PS2 and he came to visit, and I was like, man, I got Spider-Man, and he thought it was the game. He's like, cool, let's play it. And I was like, dude, it's the movie. And he was like, oh, what? So we watched that. So then I literally bought the DVD and didn't watch it for like a month or two until
he came and visited.
Yeah, because I didn't have a DVD player. And
thank you, Sterling.
Thank you, Sterling. Yeah, still have that actual DVD. Oh, and cool thing too, DVDs used to do a really good job of this, where they'd have like hours of behind the scenes content.
Oh yeah.
And the new Blu-ray movies, a lot of them now, they're just, which they can hold up to like way more than a DVD can, but they don't pack them out like they used to with DVDs. Yeah. And the cool thing about the Spider-Man trilogy that's on Blu-ray is they transported all the stuff from the DVDs onto the Blu-rays, even though they're not in HD. The extras aren't in HD. It's still cool to have all of them. So I watched all that
it's
stuff.
Basically documentary stuff at that point, which I don't think personally has to be in high def unless you're doing a nature documentary or something.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But they have some great commentaries on it. It's cool. So I got a couple issues with this movie. Before we get into issues, because we've kind of been gushing about this movie for a while. Obviously,
sure. Can I gush one more time?
Yeah, go gush away.
Dude, Uncle Ben's Oldsmobile, right?
Oh, yeah.
Am I right?
Oh, yeah. You recognized it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for any of you Evil Dead fans out there, that's the Oldsmobile that Ash drives.
Yes. That's Sam Raimi's car.
Is it his actual car? I couldn't remember whose it was.
I believe it's Sam Raimi's car, because I could be wrong, but they had no budget when they shot it. What was the first one? It was like an 11-minute episode, and then they got enough money to make Evil Dead. It's called like Walk in the Woods or something like that.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he did a few short films like that. But you're right.
When they were in high school, and then they finally got enough money to shoot Evil Dead, and then they had to shoot. Okay, anyways, we're going into Evil Dead.
But yeah, but that's the car though. So any of you, Sam
Within the
Raimi-
Woods? Was it Within the Woods? Anyways,
Okay. Last gush before we bash it, and then we can go back to gushing over it. But that first jump scare when Willem Dafoe wakes up
yeah.
after his first encounter, or when he turns into the Green Goblin and kills the lab assistant, I totally forgot about it, and both me and the girls just jumped when he goes when he just like pops up like that. Classic horror jump scare is awesome. I love to see there's not a lot. I feel like there was more tongue-in-cheek horror elements in the second film, but there was still a little bit in this one, which I thought was pretty
Dude, I haven't seen the second movie in forever.
I know, and we do need to review that one, and I can't wait to watch that one. That was I think that was definitely the best out of the three.
I almost turned it on actually after this first one was over.
Me too. The girls were like that too. We're like, let's put the second one on, but it was like too close to bedtime.
Well, I definitely agree. Also, so one thing about this movie is not a great self-contained movie like other classic movies. This movie's screaming for a sequel, and it has a great sequel that's better than the first one. And by lots, the second movie, until I think The Dark Knight, was considered to be the best superhero movie ever made.
Oh, yeah.
And even now, some people are still saying Spider-Man 2 is the best. I need to watch it again for my own personal enjoyment to check it out. But that was like, oh, we've arrived. Spider-Man 2, like there was a lot of critics that the thing is, before this, a lot of people thought superhero movies couldn't be made, that they were dumb. There was kids schlock. And this movie Superman was a huge deal when it came out. Batman was a huge deal when it came out. Then the Batman sequels got worse and worse, more campy. And then like this movie came out, and all of a sudden, oh, new heights, like, yeah. And that's when people started throwing around this stupid idea of superhero fatigue, which is
right.
It's not gonna happen, guys.
Right.
I'm sorry.
Here we are, 18 years deep.
Yeah, and it's still going strong.
No one's fatigued. Not even close.
You give us good
last
stories.
Thing.
Yeah.
Willem Dafoe, dude, is shredded as usual. That dude has got one of the best physiques.
Oh yeah.
In all of Hollywood. I don't care how old that guy gets. He does tend to look more and more like a dried piece of jerky, but that dude is fit. That guy is, oh my gosh.
Yeah, and it really helped out for him actually mastering flying the glider. Like a lot of people were impressed at how fast, because he's really athletic. Yeah. They were really impressed about that. So that's pretty cool.
All right. Break out the bat. All right. The brass knuckles.
So let's see here.
Tear it apart. Okay, so some issues I have here. There's some big plot holes in this movie that don't make sense. I don't really think it matters, honestly, because I don't think this movie's supposed to be taken too seriously, unlike The Dark Knight and other stuff. But my wife pointed out a great point, though. When Peter gets bit, he's not doing anything wrong, and he saw the spider bite him, and he's starting to get sick. So, like, why does he not would go to the hospital or be like, hey, I got bit by a potential poisonous spider. I have no idea. I'm going to go to the hospital. He doesn't tell anybody. And in an alternate universe, he would just quietly pass away. But yeah, so I thought that was once my wife pointed that out, I was like, oh, that's a really good point there, because he's not doing anything wrong. It's not like he sneaks into a lab and he's like, oh, I shouldn't be in here. Right. Or like in the new animated Spider-Man, the multiverse one. Mm-hmm. When he gets bit, they're trespassing and they're tagging, a wall where they shouldn't be. So that obviously lends to the, oh crap, I can't report this, Right. Well, plus at the same time, everybody gets bit. He didn't even really see what bit him. He was just like, something bit me. And he kind of moved on. But yeah, in the lab where you're like, this is a big deal. Like, this should not be happening. That should have been really serious.
Right. He should have told somebody, gone to the hospital, even if he just said, like, I don't know what bit me or whatever. But that, who cares? Which is kind of funny, though, because, so Sam Raimi specifically didn't put web shooters in this movie, because he was like, it doesn't make logical sense that a high schooler could make something that is just unbreakable and blah, 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 that people... And So he chose to have it where the web comes from Peter Parker's veins naturally.
It's a genetic thing, yeah.
The genetic thing, which at the time when that came out, I was disappointed that they didn't have web shooters, which is why I was excited for the Amazing Spider-Man. But then I was like, okay, whatever. But then it's funny, you see other things and you're like, wait a second. So that's one thing that you had to hang up on?
Right.
But anyways.
But I got to say, especially if you are going to follow that out, I get his line of thinking, because that would have been, how would you create that? This is a poor blue collar kid. Like, how could he afford to do that? Versus flash forward to today, you have kids have access to 3D printers, either through their school, especially if you're a poor kid.
Yeah.
It's actually kind of makes more sense that you could potentially create something like that, some actual hardware.
That's a very good point. Another thing, so there's two things that I thought about when I first saw this movie, and I'm watching it again now. I feel like there's still two issues with this. There's actually not a lot of action in this movie.
Right.
This movie doesn't have any huge fight sequences. Like, it's very much. They bring the action, if I remember, on the second movie, which is why people love the second movie. But, anyways. So that's kind of disappointing. You don't really see. I think it's part of it though is they didn't really know how to film it. I think that's a big issue. And because even 2 years later of having this new technology, when the second movie came out, they were like, "All right, let's see what we got." Right. But so that was a gripe, and that was something I remember actually when I left the theater. Was I was a little disappointed there wasn't more action in it. But I loved the movie though because it was a great Spider-Man movie at the time.
Right.
And then the other thing too is I was very disappointed when I saw this movie, and still now, but now I understand why they made this choice. I was disappointed in the design of the Green Goblin's suit because they were trying to make it as serious and not stupid. Because in the comics, he's got a very specific look, and
right. Well, it's a very clown almost looking mask that he wears.
Right, and I think. The Amazing Spider-Man series tries to do their spin on it, and it doesn't really work in that either. It's a hard look to pull off. So
right.
you gotta get the right people, because like the Marvel Cinematic Universe is knocking it out of the park with redoing people's outfits and stuff so that they're cool or they look good.
Right. Because they're obviously trying to make it stylized, to make it modern or slightly futuristic.
Yeah. And it's true. And they originally, for the Spider-Man suit, they were going to go a completely different direction until a couple people came in and including Sam Raimi, and they were like, "No, we're going to do this like as classic as possible because this is the big Spider-Man movie that we're finally been waiting since the 60s to see." And then It still took over a year to make the Spider-Man suit, to design it to what it actually was. So This is probably my personal favorite Spider-Man suit out of the Spider-Man movies that have come out. Like I think Tom Holland's suit's pretty cool, but it's just my favorite personally. I loved it.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I guess just because it just brings me back to 2002, and this was such a big deal to me, and I think I'll always love that particular Spider-Man.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
So it gives me the feels. Oh, real quick, jumping back. So that Sam Raimi short that you're talking about is called Within the Woods.
Within the Woods. There we go. I was so
1978. But you said you made a good point, and my kids were very quick to point this out, that they were like, "Man, this is a slow movie," and meaning just less action, compared to modern superhero movies, which generally have a ton of action.
They normally have at least 2 or 3 big sequences scattered throughout the movie.
And that was actually something when I was just kind of reading up what other people had to say after I watched the movie, had my own thoughts about it. But Roger Ebert, who was, maybe is arguably the greatest film critic of all time, but he only gave it a middle of the road rating because he thought there wasn't enough action in this movie for what it was and for what it was hyped up to be. And he thought that there wasn't enough action especially between Green Goblin and Spider-Man.
No, absolutely. And the thing is too, I think X-Men had more action in it, but also too, it depends on this people. This is an issue they had a long time as well. It depends on the people's superpowers, and they've gotten better and better. And so now there's literally like the Avengers, I think, was the first movie, that people were flipping out on because they actually figured out how to film sequences that were in comic books for years and to actually make it look just freaking awesome. And the Avengers.
That's been my biggest problem with Superman, is because we don't know what there's nothing to compare him to, and I still think they're trying to. I don't know. I still think they haven't yet nailed how to make Superman and his battles with epic forces, look believable. Because to me, at best, it looks like a video game sequence.
Yeah, and it's a tough sell, and the people are still trying to figure things out. But yeah, this movie, I think that's why they didn't have as much action though, because also too, it would have to be probably mostly CG. If Spider-Man's swinging around the city and Green Goblin's flying around, that would be a lot of CG right there. So that's probably was expensive at the time.
Sure.
When this came out.
And I feel like that was, like I was saying earlier with CG, I think less is more, and I think that was probably a smart move anyways, to that they pulled back on that, because like you said, the amount of action that was in the second movie. Mm-hmm. Not the third movie. That's the movie that is not to be named. We don't talk about that Spider-Man.
Yeah. Now the thing that's cool, or I liked about this too, though, the end sequence, the last fight scene, is pretty much on the ground when they're beating each other up in that old building, and it still got me. It was so cool where he like gets kicked through the wall, and then he looks up and there's no sound, and you just see the pumpkin just slowly drop, the pumpkin bomb drop, and you're just like, oh crap, and it blows up right in his face, and that would have killed any normal person. So right there, it shows how fast he regenerates.
Right. And not only that, to me, it shows, I sort of feel from one of the first times, but a hero, maybe not even just a superhero, but a hero who is vulnerable. And you see, which is kind of iconic because it would happen in the comics, but you see his mask get ripped apart and he's bleeding, and he beat the crap out of him, and he's still going. And if that's one thing from the comics that you know about Spider-Man, that guy takes a beating.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of his unspoken superpower is that he can take a licking and then somehow, just because of his drive, just keep getting back in the fight. Yeah,
his recovery rate's really quick.
Right, but beyond his recovery rate, just his attitude, his mental, I can't stop. And so even though he's not fully healed yet, he's still getting after it.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Another thing I thought was weird though was his spider sense, like especially when he's at the fair and he's just standing there chilling, and all of a sudden his spider sense goes off and the goblin's not even close, not anywhere near. And so I was kind of like, I call BS on that. If we're gonna pull comic stuff, like why would that go off? Because like the goblin doesn't hurt anybody and doesn't hurt anybody for like the next 30 seconds, and spider sense normally is like split second, like you're about to get shot in the face, and then
like that iconic scene in the second movie with the car coming through the restaurant window. Right,
exactly. It's like he has time. He reacts just before something goes down, and that's why he's hard to get hit. Which he does get hit a lot, but
So but that's the combination superpower of that Spidey sense and his lightning reflexes, is that hand and glove combination to get away from danger or to rescue people or whatever.
Right.
But yeah, absolutely. It was pretty slow.
Yeah.
Not only is it tingling, but then when Green Goblin finally shows up, he's just flying around in the distance.
Right.
Peter Sill's trying to figure out what's up.
He's like, what's going on here? Which they do. I really like actually how they're slowly bringing in the spider sense with the new Marvel movies. I think that's pretty cool. Because at first I was like, where's the spider sense? And then as they're bringing it in slowly, I'm like, okay, especially the new movie.
Yes, and just them joking about his Peter tingle. I mean, just the jokes are so good.
Yeah. Oh, so yeah, hands down. Right now, J.K. Simmons nails it as J.J. Jameson. So good.
J. Jonah.
J. Jonah. Thank you. J. Jonah Jameson nails it, and I love that they brought him back for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That was the best part of that movie, when I was just like, yes, he's back. Because I was like, how are they going to recast this guy? Sorry, spoilers if you haven't seen that, but the movie has been out for a year now.
Right.
But
get with it, people.
Get with it. All right. I got. Oh, and then also too, so when the Green Goblin throws the bomb to kill all of the board of advisors, Harry and Mary Jane are like 3 feet away, and the bomb doesn't hurt them, but it disintegrates the other people. So I'm
Right.
kind of like, that doesn't really work, but whatever. You know,
I mean, 'cause especially when it's like an orb. It wasn't like a weapon that was directional. It's a freaking grenade.
yeah, exactly. It's yeah, it's every direction, and
Right.
But because they're important, they stay alive. And hey, the best type of armor is script armor.
Yeah. So my girls watched it, and they hadn't seen any of the older Marvel stuff. They've seen everything in the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They've seen a lot of the DC stuff, but we're a big Marvel household. And I think
Raising
the only
them
one
right.
yeah, which is funny because it's not that I don't like DC, but anyways, that's another podcast. But they were excited to watch it, but they love Spider-Man. They love Tom Holland, and that's one thing they just could not relate to Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man because he was a senior in high school, and he's really only in high school for a small part of the movie, and then he's moved on, and majority of the Spider-Man story in this trilogy is him as a young adult.
Yeah,
And even in the comics, he's a teenager for a long time.
yeah, fair amount.
He's in high school for a decent amount of time, and then plus there's the other series too. There's Ultimate. There's is that the one where the new movie, the animated one, with Miles?
The Spider-Verse.
Yeah, with Miles Morales, because he's the newest Spider-Man. That's not Ultimate, is it?
No, he was introduced before that. Ultimate Spider-Man was the hardcore reboot where they
Oh, that's right.
redid
that one.
it, which I actually enjoyed that as well. I thought that was pretty good.
Right. But anyways, so what they love about Tom Holland, one, like you said earlier, and I totally agree, he's a good balance of the nerd and being a good Spider-Man. And and he doesn't try to oversell, I'm a tough guy Spider-Man. No, he's still a goofy kid as Spider-Man, but it's still more believable than squeaky voice Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man.
Right.
So they weren't able to relate to that, but also in the new movies you really see, or what Peter struggles with is high school life, is a young person's kind of day-to-day struggles, which my kids totally relate to, and they understand what that Spider-Man is going through on a day-to-day basis and dealing with growing up and whatnot, and parents and teachers and bullies and friends, and one thing that that drove them nuts is the Mary Jane version in this movie. She's your classic damsel in distress constantly.
Oh, yeah.
Girl couldn't fight her way out of a paper bag. Like she has to be saved constantly. And that's fine. That works with this story, and that's how she was in the original comics. But just the way the world is that my girls have grown up in, seeing strong, like Black Widow is one of their absolute favorite characters. I mean,
Yeah.
in the Marvel MCU, which she's probably most people's, up there as far as how much they like a character. Just an incredibly strong female character who doesn't need to be saved by a man constantly. And so seeing MJ in like Homecoming and Far From Home, not that she doesn't need to be saved, and not that she doesn't want that. She can figure stuff out for her own. She's a smart girl. She's resourceful, and that's something that my girls really liked and admired, and I would hope strive to do themselves. So that was interesting to see in 18 years an outlook from a kid watching the movie then versus now. And maybe some girls, I'm sure some girls felt that way in 2002, but
Yeah,
I think my girls had a point for how female characters are shown now.
Yeah, I think had they seen this movie before? Or is this their first time seeing it?
We tried to watch it a couple years ago, and we watched about 3/4 of it, and then it just, for whatever reason, we didn't finish it. Not that they didn't want to. But this was first time sitting, going all the way through.
Gotcha. Yeah, I thought it was interesting too. I remember Harry, because in the comics, Harry Osborn is like bros with Peter, like really, really tight. And in this movie, he's a douchebag to Peter. Like majority of this movie, like He really is. There's
Well,
not. He doesn't really do anything for Peter.
I see why Norman doesn't like his son.
Right. He's a user, and
he's just kind of whiny. Help me.
right.
I need a handout, Daddy.
And it's funny. I would actually like to know the backstory of Harry and Norman in this. It'd be fun to see why he got to that position, because he's not really a friend. He's kind of an outcast too. So just as outcasts sometimes just become friends with each other because that's the only person that's there. And so
right.
then with that I was surprised though, because then obviously when he turns into the Green Goblin in the comics, it's a huge deal. It's a big deal, and and so he ends up saving. He tries to kill Peter, and then he ends up saving them because he comes to his senses because he loves them. And so I was just I don't feel bad at all for Harry Osborn in this movie, at all. I just kind of he's a character that is there.
Right. He's necessary to move the story along, but there's not a lot of emotional attachment to him.
And I wish that they have the Osborns in the new Spider-Man series, which maybe they'll introduce him probably at some point.
Sure.
But, especially because it's a solid reboot. He's
right.
too big of a character to not bring back. I mean, Green Goblin's right there as far as a arch nemesis, for Spider-Man.
Oh yeah, he's one of the biggies for sure. I think he's one of the oldest villains that Spider-Man has as well.
Yeah,
because Venom, obviously, people would think of Venom as the big villain, but he actually came out in the 90s. He's a new villain, technically.
Yeah.
All right, give me your last thoughts, man.
Let's see what we got here. It's kind of cool. Hugh Jackman was actually supposed to have a cameo as Wolverine, so even back then, Kevin Feige was working on the X-Men movies back in the day, and so he was always involved with Marvel movies for a long time before the Marvel company. What am I trying to say? The Marvel Studios actually was released with Iron Man. Iron Man was the first movie that was released under Marvel Studios with their own
Right,
backing.
but also released under Disney.
No, Iron Man 1 wasn't, but Iron Man 2...
wasn't?
Iron Man 2 was when Disney bought them, and Iron Man 2 was the last movie that wasn't funded by Disney, but it was released under Disney's name. And then after that, they were, put out by Disney. But I don't remember who, because I think Universal Studios had the Incredible Hulk. Anyways, so I'm trying to, let's see what we got. There's a lot of great scenes from this movie. I love the teacher that's constantly where he's the next person who talks will fail this course. I kid you not. It's just he's whispering the entire time.
He's so cool and tough.
Yeah. Hey, you were talking through that woman's entire presentation. Let's go talk about how we listen.
I feel like
Keegan-Michael Key should have been that character.
He would be in the remake. Absolutely. He would nail it. He'd be a little bit angrier, but he would nail it. Yeah. Just there's a lot of little fun things in this. There's so many lines, so many sequences in this movie that just bring joy to me.
Yeah.
And there's a couple parts that were actually cringy, cheesy later in the movie, but majority of this movie though was just it hit me in the right spot, that sweet cheesy spot.
I do actually have one last thing that I remembered being a big deal to me when I had first seen this back in the day. So as you recall, 9/11 had happened the year before. Huge event.
Right.
Because kids these days have no idea because they weren't alive. They don't. It's something that's talked about. I mean, it's like Vietnam for me. I wasn't born yet, but I see the after effects. I see how other people were affected by it.
Yeah.
But anyways, 9/11 happened, and it's corny and cheesy in the movie, but at the end when Green Goblin's forcing a showdown with Peter, and he's got the gondola car, whatever, full of kids and Mary Jane, and Peter has to save them both, and then Green Goblin's just taking easy shots on Peter, and then all the New Yorkers on the bridge just start throwing stuff at the Green Goblin. Hey, leave him alone, man. We're New Yorkers. We take care of our own. And it's
you mess with one of us, you mess with all of us.
Right.
And it was so weird, but not weird, but I totally had a lot in the moment. I had a lot of pride for New Yorkers, not from New York. I actually don't even have a big desire to ever go to New York. No offense, New Yorkers. I'm just not a big city guy. But I have a lot of respect for the city. Our grandparents are from there. We have that family tie to the city, but just that pride coming out, and that, hey, nothing's going to mess with us. We're resilient. We protect our own. And just with the emotion of having, experienced across the other side of the United States, 9/11 happened. That was kind of a big deal. And I know it was like an easy, get everybody pumped, but it meant something to me in that moment.
Oh, no, absolutely. Actually, they went back and reshot that scene afterwards to add more New Yorker moments of New York pride because, 9/11 happened in September of 2001. This movie was already scheduled to come out July of 2002.
Right.
And so since New York is a character in this movie, it was, I totally agree. It was devastating when that happened. I was just like, people at the time, I remember our parents were talking about how they remember when they were in school when Kennedy was shot and how that just like shook everybody up dramatically. And so with this, it was a big deal. And that New York pride was a big deal, a time of healing and tragedy. And so this movie, I think, might have been another reason why it was perfect timing, sort of. But
I didn't even think about that. But it was definitely a boost to New Yorkers. And, there was already the heroes of the firefighters and the police and the paramedics and everyone that helped. In that day. And here's a superhero who, loves New York and wants to protect New York. So it was pretty awesome.
It was good. Did you have any issues with this movie?
Other than the obvious one, a lot of what we talked about, just it really wasn't that action packed, which I didn't really think about that. At the time, it was just so amazing. But I love the story, so everything I loved everything about it in the moment. There's some dated CGI, and like I was saying, it would have been more enjoyable to watch standard def.
Yeah,
because it just didn't. You watch on a high def TV, it just really points out any things that were trying to be hidden.
Oh yeah, it was not filmed with that in mind.
No, and that was fine. But I don't really have a whole lot else to really pick on it. It is what it is, and you can see what grew from it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a major stepping stone into the Marvel Cinematic Universe for sure.
Yeah, I feel like it was fairly faithful to the original comics, which I was a huge fan of.
Yes, I agree. And I remember too, like with the new movies, how they're kind of doing their own thing. I haven't read comics in a while, so I don't know if they're following the new comics. But now it's like, now I give them my blessing because, they did what they did, and things are going to constantly keep changing. And so now I'm just along for the ride. Let's see where this goes.
Yeah, it's fun. It's kind of fun not knowing, not being, hey, they messed that up. Oh, that's not right. It's kind of nice being in the dark a little bit.
All right, so let's roll on to final adjustments.
Final adjustments.
Final adjustments.
Yeah. Okay, I'm good. You good? I'm adjusted.
Yeah, okay, we're good. Yeah, final options here. Let's see what we got here. Opinions.
So,
that's the word I'm looking for.
The opinions. How do you feel like it hit the mark? When it released in 2002.
Oh yeah, hands down, blew it away. Hands down. What do you think?
I give it an A.
I give it an A+ for sticking the landing. It didn't make $1 billion, but not a movie's made $1 billion until later when people had more money to spend and inflation.
Sure.
Oh, I wanted to say this though. This movie was the first movie. It beat out every other movie up to this time. I'm not sure what other movies beat it since then, but I think even for inflation, it's still one of the fastest movies to hit over $100 million in like 1 or 2 days.
Yeah.
And that was, especially at the time, it was huge.
It's still ranked fairly high in a lot of, money-making records for movies. It's still doing all right for 18 years later.
And especially for it being the first movie in a series, because obviously Avengers Endgame, everybody and their mom's mom saw that movie the opening weekend.
Right.
Because that was a huge cliffhanger. They're like, nobody's going to tell me what the movie is. I got to go see that film for myself,
Yeah.
But anyways, okay, yeah. Second one, do you think that it stands... Oh, wait, go ahead. What's up?
No, I was going to say what you're saying.
Oh, do you think it stands the test of time? Is it still relevant today?
I got to give it a C. I don't think it's terrible. But I think it's... by today's standards, I'd say it's middle of the road. I've definitely seen some horrible stuff. You watch Batman and Robin, I mean, that's pretty bad movie. but I feel like this does better.
I have not,
And I'm not even hating on Batman and Robin because those are fun movies.
Oh, I know a lot of people love Batman and Robin and Batman Forever and stuff, which I never finished watching Batman and Robin. I couldn't finish it. And I like terrible films, so I don't know if maybe I just wasn't in the right mindset, but
Right.
Anyways, George Clooney is in better things. So okay, see,
Yeah,
that's
he is.
lower than I expected, but I would rate this movie in, like I was referencing before, it is just as big of a deal as Superman and Batman, the original movies, in my opinion, of like history. So I gotta give it a B. Is it still relevant? Because it is movie making history, I believe.
Yeah.
It's very
That is a very good point.
is extremely influential in the Marvel movies to come after that. Because before this, literally, X-Men was a pretty solid film, but it wasn't a blowout like this movie. This was the first
Right.
official.
The second X-Men film was definitely
Oh
my gosh.
But part of that, though, was because of Spider-Man. People were like, oh, it's another Marvel film. Gotta see it. Let's go check out X-Men. I hadn't even heard of the X-Men movie before I saw Spider-Man. And then when X2 came out, dude, I was pumped. I saw the first X-Men movie and I enjoyed it. And, you know, X2 is a way better film than the first one. But anyways.
Well, speaking of history watchers, this is the first time in the history of this show that I gave a lower score than my brother. So there you have it.
That's true. Actually, no, that's a good point. Because normally I'm harder on films. That's true.
Right. Okay, here we go. The big one.
All right. So
Personal enjoyment.
what did you, what's your personal enjoyment, Josh?
So again, and it surprised me because I'm usually very sentimental and usually my sentimentality sways me in my voting, but
the Patriot.
yeah, big time. And I give it a C plus for personal enjoyment. I enjoyed it, but I'm not in a hurry to go rewatch it. Now, some of this, to be fair, I've seen this movie a lot because this was one of my favorite movies for a long time. I was just so into it. I also own I still have the original DVD that I bought when it finally dropped. So I've just seen it a lot. So it's hard. It was a little bit harder for me to. Again, I think I like the second one better. I think when that one's on, but again, if this came on at night, I'd probably watch it for a little bit too. But still, I got to give it a C plus. All right,
Gotcha.
Hit me.
C plus. All right, man. No, I think this is my first A of the series. So
oh my
far.
gosh! Wow.
So yeah, this movie, it's not a perfect film by any means.
Sure.
It definitely has some major flaws. It's cheesy. It's dated. But I was just watching it the other day, and I just had so many good memories and so many sequences in this movie I really enjoyed. It does get slower at the end of the movie, and the movie doesn't leave you with a great feeling when it's over. But that first 3/4 of the film, though, for me, is just pure enjoyment. I'm just enjoying it. I'm enjoying the cheesiness of it. It's just brings back a lot of memories.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny. Okay, so this is where I'm a little. So we haven't really we defined a little bit of what a midnight watch is, and so I give this movie an A for personal enjoyment, but it's not a midnight watch for me though. It depends on the where it's at that I would watch this. I wouldn't like start this movie halfway through and like finish watching it. So it's not a midnight watch, but it is an A. So all right, so here is, you heard it from us. So we got an A from me for the Spider-Man. And we got a C plus personal enjoyment for Josh, but not a midnight watch though from either one of us yet.
Right.
So
I guess we average out as a B.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Yeah. But it was a huge moment for us to go see this movie. I'm definitely fond of the memory of going to see this movie with you and what that movie meant to me back in the day.
Yeah, absolutely. This was a big deal.
I feel like I'm justifying my C.
Well, you got to live with yourself. So
I know. How will I?
All right. So if anybody cares out there, okay, let me try this again. And here we go with the quote for our next movie next week, dropping next Friday.
I can get the part from Bristol. It'll take 2 weeks. Here's your pomade.
2 weeks? That don't do me no good.
Nearest Ford Automan's Bristol.
Hold on. I don't want this pomade. I want Dapper Dan.
I don't carry Dapper Dan. I carry Fop.
I don't want fuck. Gosh dang it. I'm a Dapper Dan man.
Watch your language, young feller. This is a public market. Now, if you want Dapper Dan, I can order it for you. Have it in a couple of weeks.
Well, ain't this a geographical oddity? 2 weeks from everywhere. I cannot wait to review this movie.
Dude.
For all the movies that we've already done, this movie, hands down, is the most quotable for sure. We had a hard time picking the quote on it. We
my gosh.
Before we started recording tonight, we just went back and forth on quotes from this movie for like literally a solid 5 minutes. This movie has tons of quotes. Give it your I definitely hope that somebody figures out this movie this movie.
Please somebody chime in, give us I'll probably drop a teaser pic on the gram and Facebook. So
well, that's it, webheads for today. If you want to check out this movie, I own this movie, and I own 2 copies of this movie. I own 3 copies of this movie.
Super fan.
I have a tattoo of this. No, I don't.
Of the Blu-ray of this movie, of the DVD.
The front cover of this movie is on my lower back. So, and it's in widescreen. That's a full screen widescreen DVD joke for everybody who doesn't care. So, all right. Did you watch this movie on your own copy, or did you actually?
Yes. No, I had my own copy as well, but I did look it up, and it is on Stars right now. If you have a subscription to Stars, you can check that out.
Oh, I'm glad you checked that. I totally didn't. I was like, oh, I own this movie. This is easy. Cool. Well, thank you so much to our sound producer, Jake Colvin. And if you enjoyed this episode, then we'd love it if you shared it with your friends and family. Anybody you think you might like it, anybody you think may not like it, please share away.
But if you want to annoy people, get them to listen to it, and then, anyways.
Yeah, I have a friend who's like,
talk it up, people. Talk it up.
Yeah, talk it up, please. But I have a friend who is like, I don't listen to podcasts. It'll make me sleepy. And I was like, then just press play every night and listen to it.
Right. And when you wake up in the morning, give it a 5-star.
Give it a 5-star.
Speaking of which, please subscribe. Give us we'd love to have 5-star ratings. Boost those ratings. Get us more people checking us out in Apple Podcasts. Also, whatever you listen to it on, if it's
we're on Google
those
Podcasts,
other ones.
We're on
Google,
Stitcher,
Spotify. That's the one I was tripping over. Spotify. There's several. But anyways, we'd appreciate you guys checking it out, getting other people to give it a listen. If you'd like to contact us, please give us an email, themidnightwatchpodcast@gmail.com. You can also find us on Instagram @themidnightwatchpodcast, and also you can check us out on Facebook.
Yes, and also if we're wrong about information, which we are totally wrong already on sometimes, like for example, when I corrected Josh on Ewan McGregor saying that he's actually from Scotland, then I put my foot in my mouth. Albert Finney is British. And I was like, he's actually Scottish too. So there you have it. I totally don't know what I'm talking about half the time. So
that's right. Call us on our mistakes, please.
Yes, please correct us after you give us a 5-star rating. And all right, guys. Thank you so much. You have an amazing week. And as always, keep up the watch.